So, hello again, everybody. And it's now 4 p.m. in Beijing. So, I think we can start with our webinar of today on innovative training networks and how to find a PhD opportunity. I would like to start introducing myself and a team a little bit before going through a few logistics and like indications and the agenda of the webinar, and then we can start with the first part. So I am Anna from Euraxis China. I am country representative of Euraxis China in Beijing since recently, actually, since January. But I've been working in China for quite a few years. I've been continuously in China since 2015. And I'm here with two colleagues of mine that maybe would like to share a few words to introduce themselves. Haldor.
Yeah, hello. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Thank you, Anna. So my name is Haldur Berg. Alongside with Anna, I am a representative of Euraxis in China. I've been working with the office of Euraxis in China in Beijing since 2015. And I don't know, I just like want to wish you guys luck with the today's event. I will be maybe but at the end with some information about how to find PhD positions, like a little bit further information. And I guess the only thing I would like to tell you guys is that we're not only doing this one webinar now, we are always available for you the whole year. I mean, like our team is here to help people that want to work with research in China and Europe. So, gotta go.
Thank you, Halder. Yeah, this is very true. And also through the webinar, you're going to have the chance to find our contacts, find our WeChat, join the WeChat group we created for this webinar in case you are not part of it yet. So if you're not part of and connected through our channels yet, please take the chance today. And also we have Vanessa with us from our Euraxis China team. Vanessa, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I'm from China, based in Beijing. And it's very glad to see you all and hope you have some learning from this session. And do prepare well. If you have any questions, you can raise your questions later at our QA session.
Exactly. Thank you, Vanessa. We are also going to have a testimony today. That is PhD candidate Ming-Wan, but I will let her introduce herself at the later stage when she starts her presentation. So just a few indications for you all and the agenda before we start. So this webinar is going to be held in English mostly. So the first part will be a presentation. I will go through this presentation about innovative training networks in English. Then we will have a short Q&A sessions about the first part. The testimony from Yuan will follow. Her testimony is going to be in Chinese, but in case there's some of you attending that do not speak Chinese, don't worry, because she's going to show you PowerPoints that are in English. And in case you can summarize a bit, then you can always ask questions in English. After her testimony, again, a short Q&A session, and then we will conclude with a very interesting and concrete walkthrough on our website where Halder will teach you how to use the tools that are available for you online to select and identify the PhD opportunities that are to interest to you and that suits you most. That part is also going to be in English. And you are always allowed to ask questions in English or in Chinese as you feel more comfortable. During the presentations, please use the chat tool that you find at the bottom of the window and type your question in there. Otherwise, if you prefer to ask the questions directly, you can always raise your hand through the button, or in case ask with a message on the chat tool, and ask my colleagues to book a slot that is going to be only through the Q&A sessions. So we will unmute you and you will be able to ask your question directly. And please remember that we will not have too much time, so only a few of us will be allowed to ask the person directly. And anyway, we're about to start, and I will start sharing my screen so you can see my presentation. And already know we created a WeChat group chat that is for today's webinar. Those of you who shared their WeChat accounts when registering are probably already part of it. If not, can join by scanning this QR code. They use and the meaning of the WeChat is probably going to show, especially later after the webinar is concluded. For example, if you have questions that will still be unanswered, or if while applying for a fellowship or for a funding opportunity, you want to share experience or want to ask your colleagues, we can always be sharing, be asking questions through this group chat. All the three of us, me, Halder, and Vanessa, are in this group, and we'll be very happy to follow up also after the end of the webinar. So I would like to start today giving you a little bit of a bigger picture and give you a little bit of perspective to understand how the research fellowship happen and are made available through the framework programs and of the European Commission. So we start talking about the ERA, which is the European Research Area. The European Research Area is a system of scientific research programs that combines, that integrate all the resources of member states of the European Union and of its countries, which are 16 countries. It's we have to talk about the European Research Area because it's an area of excellence. We have excellent science in there, even just about thinking of the Nobel Prizes that were awarded. One can immediately imagine that. It's a wide area that combines all the resources of these multiple countries. So even when compared to other areas of excellence, like in the United States or like China, it still can be very competitive. A lot of ideas, a lot of innovation comes out of the research area. In the ERA, some of the world's best universities are hosted, and it can also count on one of the highest output, highest quality output in terms of research publications, for example. So it's an excellent point to start from, and it can offer a lot of opportunities. Still is very wide and it's quite complex because of the combination of all of these elements. EURACCESS wants and is meant to be your gateway to the European Research Area. What is EURACCESS? It belongs to the ERA and is an initiative of the European Commission that is based on the three main pillars that you can see on my slide here. First is the portal. You are going to discover more about the portal in the final part of the webinar, so don't leave us because that is going to be also very useful, I believe. And it's a website administered by the European Commission, which offers really a lot of information and materials. And it's really a great place to start if you're looking for a research career, if you are looking for research jobs or for funding opportunities for early stage researchers, but also to more advanced researchers, people who are more advanced in their career. So please have a look at it. You can find at the bottom of the slide the website that especially belongs to the China hub of the EURAXESS portal. And so we can go to the second pillar, which are the EURAXESS centers. There are more than 500 different centers that are hosted by the different countries belonging to the ERA, meaning that big countries like France or Germany have more than 50 centers each, which are basically offices with expert people that are there to help researchers like you who are interested and who are thinking or organizing to move to Europe. We know that when moving to a different country, maybe with different language, there's not only language barriers, but also cultural barriers, and we need to get to know all the different way of even just finding an apartment or like moving into the new environment that we're about to go to. So these EURAXESS centers are there to help and support researchers moving to their country or destinations. The third one, but not less important, is EURAXESS Worldwide. EURAXESS Worldwide as hubs in many different areas of the world, and especially those regions where scientific research and research activities are more intense. So we have colleagues working in North America, in Brazil, in the Caribbean, but also in India, a new hub that opened recently for Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan, so really a lot of different places. Our China hub has been opened in Beijing since 2009, so more than 10 years. And so our role is to provide information for researchers who wants to move between China and Europe. So for Chinese researchers, but also European researchers who are based in China and planning a move to Europe, and also the other way around. As I already said, we help and provide information in finding research jobs and finding opportunities. We also support organizations in both areas, in China and Europe, to find potential partners, to start new collaborations. And we create opportunities for networking and sharing of experience, sharing of intelligence, and all these kind of activities. How do we do it? With the website, through our portal is a great resource, through our newsletter and publications. So if you want to stay updated on what's happening in terms of the Sino-European scientific and innovation scenario, if you want to stay updated on the new fundings and new calls they're opening, please subscribe to our newsletter, because we have weekly updates. We also organize events, workshops, conferences, and networking events for researchers to meet and to know each other. So on the slide on the left, as I said, there is the Euraxis WeChat QR code. Scan it if you want to stay updated and connected. Also from that point of view, this is a little bit of more information on what we do and what we can support you and your network with. Okay, then I would like to move to the grants and talking about the research landscapes and how funding is made available. So we can differentiate among two main pillars. One is the Horizon 2020. What is Horizon 2020? It's a framework program that is about to come to an end because it's the end of the year. And in 2021, the new one that is called Horizon Europe will start. It's one of the largest funding schemes available in the world, with from 80 to 100 million euros available. And under this umbrella, there are many different kind of opportunities that are made available both to individuals and to organizations and not organizations. The other pillar is composed by the opportunities that are offered by the individual EU countries and the associated countries. So even with Horizon 2020 being a very large funding scheme, still it looks small when compared to the combined opportunities that are offered by the single EU countries and associated countries. So in Horizon Europe, we find, as I said, individual funding opportunities, those of the European Research Council, and those, for example, offered by the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action. If you're interested in those, or someone you know is interested, please be aware that last 2 weeks ago we also held our first webinar on individual fellowships. Those are reserved to a little bit of more advanced researchers who are a little bit more advanced in their careers, but you can find all the information and materials we produced online. And then there are those funding opportunities that are offered to network, like the RISE, like the innovative training networks, like the co-funding mechanism. And there you go. On the other side, you see all the EU countries and also the list of associated countries. Those are the 16 countries that you find on the bottom of the slide. They are not formally part of the European Union, but are still part of the framework program, and therefore can be assimilated to the EU countries when talking in these terms. Okay, so going a little bit deeper in our today's topic, I would like to spend a few words talking specifically about the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. We're talking about a research fellowship program that is, as I said, is funded under the Horizon 2020. It focuses on the research itself or herself, and is based on the 3 pillars that you find on my slide: training, mobility, and career. Under the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, we find 4 different programs, and there we go. Research and innovation staff exchange is one. The co-fund is another one. You probably have heard about the co-funding mechanism that has been established with the Ministry of Science and Technology of China. The individual fellowships, I just told you that we held a webinar on this 2 weeks ago, and today's topic that is about the innovative training networks. What are these? These are networks of different organizations. We're talking about universities and research institutions, but also non-academic organizations that offer opportunities to early stage researchers. So let's talk a little bit more about the ITNs and their objectives. What is the objectives and what is their aim? Basically, their final aim is for the researchers to broaden their career perspectives and to broaden their competences, both in the academic and in the non-academic sector. So first pillar, first objective is to offer in a non-traditional academic training setting to the researchers, to the fellows that take part to the ITNs, and to give them the opportunity to improve both research-related but also transferable skills. Second one, an important element of the innovative training networks is to enhance the career perspectives, as I said, without academia. So the transsectoral mobility, the transsectoral aspect is key in all the innovative training networks, and then to train a new generation. So this program is aimed at researchers who become very innovative and entrepreneurial and creative, and will be able to transform their work and their ideas into products and services that will help in facing the societal challenges and into shape the society of the future. A little bit of numbers. The last data that we have available is from 2019, last year, of course. Through this program, 774 Chinese researchers have been funded so far. So this gives you a little bit of idea. We have 3 different types of innovative training networks. They have some characteristics, features that we're going to go through in a moment. They are all established through different organizations that set up a network, and is the network that led by one of the organizations apply for funding to through the framework program and to the European Commission. So when selected, then they start with the recruitment process and selection of the researchers, including Chinese researchers. Common characteristic is that all these 3 types of networks offer opportunities that go from a minimum of 3 months of length to a maximum of 3 years. While the network can apply for a period of a maximum of 4 years. Why am I saying this to you? Because with this extra year, the networks have all the time to promote their PhD positions and to select and to let the researchers come to the host institution. So the maximum time available is full 3 years for the Chinese researchers that apply to that specific program. Okay, So European training networks, European industrial doctorates, European joint doctorates. Let's see what are the differences. The first one, the European training networks, they are mostly aimed at push the researcher to become more entrepreneurial, to push the creativity. And that's why they are normally composed by at least 3 partners that needs to belong to both the world of academia and outside academia, so as to offer intersectoral training to the fellows. They also need to belong to 3 different member states or associated countries, so adding the dimension of also international mobility during the program, and they need to offer interdisciplinary training. The European training networks, as also the name difference with the other 2 suggests, are the only one that sometimes do not offer, do not award a doctoral degree. That is not always the case, but and it's always stated when you look and you apply for the program, but it's an information that is good to know. The second one are the European industrial doctorates. Those are especially aimed at training the fellow so as to give skills that are going to make him very appealing, let's say, on both the academic and the non-academic job environment. They always award a doctoral degree, so at least one of the partners in the network needs to be able to award the doctoral degree. At least one partner needs to be from outside of academia, and very interestingly, at least 50% of the time, of the total time of the fellowship that is assigned to the researchers need to be spent in that partner, in the non-academic partner, even when the first hosting organization is a university. And they need to be established in at least 2 different member states or associate countries. And for the research, that is always supervised jointly by the academic and the non-academic partner. The third type is that of European joint doctorates. Again, we are talking about a program that awards also a doctorate degree, of course. It's aimed to promote international and intersectoral collaboration, and intersectional and multidisciplinary cooperation in the training of the researcher. 3 other academic partners, at least, coming from 3 different member states or associated countries. Again, the supervision of the fellow is done jointly by the different partners, and they award a title that is a joint or a double, or even sometimes a multiple doctorate degree. So at least 2 partners need to be allowed to award doctorates, so that is at least a joint doctorate. Who is eligible for these programs? These programs is meant for early stage researchers. What does it mean, early stage researchers? They are those who are in the first 4 years of their research careers, and means that they have not been awarded a PhD title. And anyway, it's counted, these 4 years are counted from the date when the researcher was awarded the title that would allow him to go for a PhD. So even if you have never thought about applying for a PhD and now want to apply for the innovative training networks, you need to consider that you need to be in the first 4 years after you were awarded your master degree, for example, because that is the title that you need to go for a PhD. The fellowship are open to people from any nationality. Nationality doesn't count. What counts is the country where you resided in the last few years. Why? Because there's the mobility rule that applies, and that means that the fellow needs to physically move to another country, and that country needs to be not the same country where he has been for the last 3 years, at least no more than 12 months. These apply in this case of the networks, of the innovative training networks, only to the first organization, so the first host organization. Therefore, also if your destination country is Germany and you spent a 1-year exchange program in France, then you join an ITN network where you first go to Germany and then you want to spend a shorter period in another organization of the network that is based in France, you're allowed to do so because the first country is Germany and that's what it counts. The networks apply to all areas or research. So these are the rules and the eligible applicants. What are the typical research and training activities? Let me say this again. These training programs are aimed at developing the competencies, broadening the perspectives of careers of the researchers that are implied. So activities include the training to research. This is done through very personalized and individual planning. Of course, network-wide training activities that may include workshops, so summer schools or exchanges organized at organizations that are part of the network. Invitation of visiting researchers, they can be from academia or outside of academia. Structured training courses, of course, these can be lectures or classes. Another element is knowledge exchange that is realized through events, but also digital technologies. Transferable skills training. I think this is worth spending a few more words because it's an element that characterizes the innovative training networks. These trainings are meant to develop transferable skills. For example, some of the most common topics they are normally organized about our research and innovation topics, or more like management and research grants topics. So those can include management communication, but also startup incubation courses, or team skills, or even gender issues and cross-cultural communication. So pretty wide and pretty interesting topics. Other two important elements that you see in different colors in my slide are first, every fellow part of an innovative training network will develop a personal career development plan. This is not only about your research and your research topic. This career development plan includes the career needs of the fellow as well as the training that he wants to get. The plan is created together with the supervisor or supervisors and includes different moments through the fellowship where the researcher will have career guidance and mentorship. The last element is that one in yellow about open science. Open science is a little bit of underlying principle of the whole program, and it means that science wants to be open to the common public, and with this principle, we want to involve diversity in science so as to bring it to the daily life and to be involved in the social and economic in the face of the society and economy related problems that we are trying to solve. Okay, this was a little bit of an overview of what you will be doing if you decide to and you are selected for this kind of fellowships. A few words about the participating organizations. So all the different organizations that form the networks. There is always one beneficiary that is the main host organization. So that is the organization that is going to recruit, is going to supervise. Those are the people that are going to interview and are going to train you in the first place. The beneficiary can be both academic and non-academic. What does it mean? Academic organizations are, of course, universities and research institutions, and those who are normally allowed to award a doctorate degree. Non-academic organizations are basically all the rest. So those include small, medium, and large enterprises, but also library, museums, hospitals, non-governmental organizations, charitable organizations, so very wide variety. And the beneficiary is always located in a member state or in an associated country. Is the one that signs the grant agreement with the European Commission. So it get the funding that is going to then going to fund your fellowship. The partner organizations are also elements and parts of the network. They are important because they provide additional research and transfer of skills training. So they add interesting elements that the beneficiary wouldn't be allowed to offer to the researchers themselves. And they're normally the destination of secondments. We're also going to talk about this in a moment. They are allowed, if they fit the criterions, to deliver doctorate degrees, and they also can be academic and not academic, and they are located in any country in the world. Secondments. They are very much encouraged, and you will find all the information for the secondments at the moment of applying through the network. So information about like where and which organizations and which kind of training and opportunities are offered through the secondments. Of course, they need to be relevant and coherent with the whole program of the network. And not a rule, but common practice is that the researcher keeps the contract with the standing institution. So it keeps the same contract and is still paid his allowances by the original institutions, also when going on a secondment. They can be split into different shorter periods. You don't need to go on a secondment for a unique long period. Of course, they offer a networking opportunity. So I added some specifics for the secondments that are related to the 3 different types of innovative training networks. For the European training networks, the total period you spend at the secondment institution on secondments is up to a maximum of 30% of the total period of the fellowship. For the industrial doctorates, and that depends especially on the fact that 50% of the time needs to be spent in non-academic sector. So that also depends on, you know, what is the secondment focused on. But anyways, the maximum is a maximum of 30%, while at joint doctorates, there are no limitations. Why is that? Because with European joint doctorates, you are going to be awarded the joint or double doctorate degree or multiple doctorate degree. So what's most important in this case is that the researcher spends enough time at an institution to be awarded these titles. So that's it for the secondments. And so some of you said earlier that he or she already has some contacts or direct or like indirect contact with innovative training networks or with some professors that could be, you know, a potential supervisor for a PhD. This slide is just to remind you that it's very important when you're looking for an opportunity in Europe, but I think in general, that you need to start for your personal contacts and from the contacts that you can get through colleagues or friends. So networking is a very important element. Always try to take advantage when you're attending seminars or conferences to get the contacts of that professor that works on your specific field of competence of interest, or ask colleagues who you know are already involved in collaborations with Europe. Make yourself noticed by asking questions and by showing your interest. The other one, very, very important, we will hear also this from the experience of Mingwan, who is going to talk about that later. If you have the opportunity, try to go on exchange abroad, because that is first where you realize yourself if you will be happy in doing a PhD at that specific university, and you build personal relationship. So always have a look if you're pursuing your master degree for exchange programs offered by Chinese university or by the schemes offered by the individual European countries. Which country in Europe do you want to go? That's a good question. There's many opportunities. On the right part of the slide, you see a collection of opportunities that we selected for you. They are all open to Chinese candidates. They're all in different countries of the European Union in different sectors. So you don't need to be in the destination country to apply. All the processes online, and is managed by the specific network. So you need to look for the details of every different application process. And you can look on our webpage and our WeChat, because we constantly post different opportunities to try to reach the interest of the most of you. A little bit of data of like where Chinese fellows go in Europe. The green ones are those that are taking part or took part into the Innovative Training Networks fellowships. So you see that the majority goes to Germany, followed by the UK, and then the other main countries are 27 in Italy, France, Sweden, and Belgium. Then also a few in Spain, but those are the main countries. So this is just for information, and when you're considering to applying, I think it's always a good idea to maybe try to reach other Chinese fellows who are already taking part in the network to have suggestions and also feedback. How much funding will you receive? So the funding is divided in two main sections. One is the part that is for the researcher unit cost. So the researchers receive living allowance. You see the to adapted considering the destination country. So there is this country correction coefficient that wants to make your living allowance proportionate to the cost of life in the country where you're going. If you're going to Iceland, the cost of life is higher, so you will get 17% more. In Eastern Europe, normally cost of life is lower, so you might receive a little bit less. Those information are all specified and you can find them. Mobility allowance is fixed, 600 euros. Family allowance for those who are married or who have kids, and this applies even if the family doesn't move together with the researcher but stays in China or in the original country. The institutional unit costs is this section that maybe you need to care a little bit less about, because that money is administered by your host institution, and there's a part that is going to be devoted to your research, training, and networking activities. So for classes, for sending you to a conference, so including the flight ticket, the hotel, the visa if required, and all of that, and then management and overhead costs again of the hosting organization. Please just remember that talking about the living allowance, the numbers that you find here are gross, and in every different country in Europe there are different rules in terms of pension and taxes to be paid. So when you want to find exactly what the net living allowance will be, you need to ask the institution that is going to host you in the country, or I think you can refer to the national contact points as well in that in the destination country. We're going towards the end of the presentation. So the application that you submit is going to go to the recruiting entity of the Innovative Training Networks. They will follow up with you, they will select, they will interview you, and they will follow up with all the procedures if you are selected. The host institution or beneficiary signs the contract with the European Commission. The researchers apply through the beneficiary and then employs. So the researchers sign the contract with the beneficiary, with the host institution. That's a few words. about the current situation related to the coronavirus. There, of course, have been consequences related to the Marie Skłodowska reactions. For the fellows that are already during their fellowships, and also for the calls that opened recently. So some of the deadlines have been postponed, and in general, the European Commission is applying the maximum flexibility in these difficult times. On the website, you can find all the information that I'm not telling you now because they are updated constantly. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. We can go to and receive some questions.